Peter McGuinness, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Let's talk about DDB Chicago. You joined from Gotham a little over a year ago, and you were really brought in as a change agent, if you will. The charge was really to kind of recapture some of DDB Chicago's lost glory.
No doubt.
What was job one for you?
Well, I think broadly speaking, it was to get DDB Chicago back to its rightful place twofold. One, within the network, because it was always a lighthouse kind of agency within the DDB network. It always had a big part of the DDB soul, and it was always an iconic shop. The second thing was to bring it back to its rightful place in the industry, because it was always an industry-leading agency. And I think over the years it kind of just lost its way, and while still a lighthouse, the light was dull and dim. And I think it just didn't evolve as the world around it evolved and as clients' needs and demands evolved. It kind of stayed steady. And
was this also because client roster stayed pretty much intact and it had?
It didn't. It had high attrition before I came. So I think there was about a
But I mean, in years previous, you know, there were some stalwart clients.
Yeah, and there's still, so State Farm, obviously some Wrigley business, but McDonald's was big, Safeway. Had for 6 or 7 years, Cap One 6 or 7 years. So you get some big ones.
All going fine for a long time, and then it started to deteriorate.
Yeah, I think then the economy, you know, I think clients became more demanding, less loyal. Then I think the proliferation of different media channels and mobile in particular, social in particular, kind of just changed the landscape, changed the competitive framework, and DDB was this kind of agency stuck in time. A place where time stands still, right? So it just needs to be evolved.
So you brought in a lot of new people. You've hired a lot of new talent.
Yeah, so to your earlier point, so what was job one? Job one was it's talent. I mean, this is we don't have an assembly line, we don't make widgets, we don't have robots that help us with, you know, manufacturing on, it's a people-based business because it's an idea-based business, and ideas come from people. And at Gotham, parallel there is, we changed 85% of the agency and replaced it with more modern, progressive, like-minded people that had the same values, same cultural traits, same characteristics, but also were a little bit more digitally, mobily, and socially native. And obviously, DDB Chicago is a much larger entity, but it's got a lot of the same issues and challenges. So we've brought in about 100 people in the last 14 to 16 months, which out of a 400-person agency is a lot. And we're not done yet, but it's a
big
good
culture shift.
Big, and we also dissolved Tribal, which was a separate branded digital agency.
You did do that, yeah.
And brought that under to create an integrated model, which I think is almost table stakes at this point, but it's very necessary.
But you held out for a long. DDB Chicago held out.
DDB held out
from
a long
doing
time.
That for a long time.
A long time. So now that's all integrated in, and we've hired 8 digital, mobile, social people in the last 2 weeks. So we're up to about 55, which is, I mean, way, way, way higher than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. So, and we also wanted to attract some non-Chicago talent to make it more diverse. So we've hired creative teams from Buenos Aires, South Africa, London, Portland, Boulder, New York, because diversity of people and diversity of geography equals diversity of ideas.
So let's talk about that, the Chicago location. What's the unique value of being in Chicago versus anywhere else? Is there a unique value, or do you need to necessarily be completely diverse?
I think we're still majority Chicagoan, okay? And when you have clients like Mars Wrigley down the road, and McDonald's and State Farm, all based in Illinois, and Morton Salt and Field Museum and things like that. No, I think there's a lot of value. I think having lived in New York, lived in London for 4 or 5 years, New York for 20, we're often not the target audience of a lot of the brands we work on.
Sure.
And marketing 101 is take yourself out of it. Easier said than done. But I think a lot of, and I had bias the other way at Gotham, where we pitched clients like Pizza Hut and things like that, made it to the finals, and in the end they're like, but Gotham and New York, what are the franchisees going to think?
Yeah.
There's only 4 Pizza Huts. We're really a C&D County, mainstream America brand. Gotham, New York is almost like New York, New York. It's like really New York. Whereas I think in Chicago, it is a different culture. I mean, I've been there 14 months, almost 14 months, and it's a calmer, more genteel, place than New York.
And how does that feed into your creative development, would you say?
I think it's good and bad, which is why we're going to augment, you know, a Chicago centricity with people from all around the United States and all around the globe. And I think, I don't think you should be any one thing. But I do think we need a foothold in Chicago when you have large, mainstream, mass brands like McDonald's and State Farm.
Sure.
Have to. And there are more of our clients' products and services in and around Chicago than, say, in Manhattan. So from that regard, it's kind of a no-brainer. But I think also being too Chicago-centric is a bad thing, too. So I think we're striving for diversity, both in terms of ethnicity, youth, male, female, and geography, because you're just bringing different perspectives.
Let's talk about recent business wins and losses. What have you learned from those?
We've grown a lot in the last year, so double-digit revenue, deep double-digit profit, which is good, and we're going to exceed our number for the first time in a long time in Chicago, so proud of that.
That's great.
Most of that came from organic growth, which was the plan, because when you have McDonald's and State Farm and Mars Wrigley, maybe you should just pay attention to them because they're actually leaders in their respective categories, and we didn't have all share of their business.
Yeah.
So here we were owning the I'm Loving It platform, which we authored,
Right.
but we didn't own all the expressions of that platform because we had evolved as an agency, so we didn't have all the digital mobile social business, the event business. And the same goes for State Farm. So I wanted to look inward because DDB had gone through a string of CEOs, and then it was CEO list for a while. So I think the clients needed to be paid attention to, and they needed to be stabilized, and then we wanted to grow with them because they were growing. So, like I said, 3/4 of our growth came from organic as part of the plan, which I'm proud of. And then 1/4 came from, we won some PepsiCo business, and we won more Mars Wrigley business, more on the Mars side. So Temptations, Skittles, Starburst, Milky Way, a lot of fun brands.
What was the common thread in those wins, do you think?
Creativity, differentiation, market share gains. So, you know, they look at a DDB Chicago and they sit there and say, well, there's an agency that knows retail. There's an agency that knows how to drive traffic. Think about Cap One, card acquisition, State Farm. They measure us on net new policies. Either you're driving policies or you're not. McDonald's, 109 straight months of comp store growth. Either you're driving traffic in, which we measure daily. There's no gray area there, and you're raising average check, or you're not. And if you're not, that's not a good thing.
Sure.
So the fact we've had them for 40 years, we had our 40-year anniversary with McDonald's last month.
Wow.
Is huge. We've had State Farm since, I think, 1939. So we have a pedigree, and that's the good side. We have a pedigree of like delivering major results in an erotic retail way. So when you're in a recession, that narrative bodes well. When you're in a prolonged recession or whatever we're in right now, maybe you have a better name for it than I do. When you're in a sluggish economy, it bodes really well. So Mars Wrigley wanted creativity because Chicago always stood, like I said, it was a lighthouse agency. DDB is the most awarded network from a Cannes Lion perspective.
Sure.
We're hanging on by a thread right now, but we're the most awarded network. Chicago is one of the most awarded offices, one of the most awarded networks. So we've always had a creative pedigree, we've always had a retail pedigree. So you take a Mars Wrigley who, you know, wants to dramatically increase their share, both from driving new people in and stealing share from other candy brands. That's a combination of being neurotic from a results perspective and being highly creative. So that just boded well. And PepsiCo was the same way. They were not doing well.
Right.
So they were looking for major share gains.
Are you integrated now, would you say?
Yes, I would say, am I doing cartwheels yet? No, but we are fully integrated. The walls are literally and figuratively down. We also totally got renovated our space. So, you know, no more fiefdoms and no more, you know, compartmentalized.
So it's a literal change, a literal opening
literal
up
and figurative.
Yeah.
So we've knocked it all down and we've mixed up all the account groups and we've mixed up all the disciplines. So they're all sharing offices and working on an open plan with collaboration zones, and that's helped. And then all the digital mobile social people are DDB, Chicago employees, and they're embedded with the individual client teams.
Okay.
So in terms of ideation and concepting and even executing, we have an integrated production department. So we're doing TV, radio, print, and digital production in DDB Chicago.
So historically, you've wanted to be known as, you know, the creative shop. You know, obviously, creative is your prowess. I mean, is it still that, or has that evolved?
No, it's still that. Creative at the core,
Yeah.
because you can't oversteer or overcompensate or try to create something you're not. We're DDB, Bernbach's Admin of the Century. He believes creativity is the most powerful force in business. He believes that there's magic in a brand and a product that you have to unearth and talk about in a very compelling way. So I want to still be creative at the core,
Right.
but I want to express our creativity in many, many channels, not one or two channels. And that was, I think, the big problem. That's why we didn't have all of our business from all of our Drive clients.
But what's the value of creativity in such a data-driven world right now? I mean, you mentioned results, but
The value is engagement and affinity. So if you're not creative in the way you express a product or a service, you don't cut through, you don't break through, you're not beloved, you're not sought after, and quite frankly, consumers don't want to engage with it. In a time where brands are porous and consumers are literally engaging with brands, there's a reciprocal relationship. So, a brand has to do something for a consumer if they want that consumer to do something for them. And consumers very much see it as a reciprocal. So give me something and I will give you something in return. It's no longer, a one-way street. Just like healthy human relationships, father, son, husband, wife, it's got to be reciprocal. It's not going to be sustainable. I think brand relationships are the same. So a lot of what consumers get from brands are creativity and fun and entertainment and engagement. So I actually think it's more incumbent now on us to be creative than it ever has been, because consumers are more demanding. Also, consumers are generating their own content, so we better be better than their content.
Sure.
From a crowdsourcing perspective and everything else. I mean, when you look at the Super Bowl, I think 2 or 3 of the top 10 Super Bowl spots were consumer generated, not ad agency generated.
Yeah.
So I think it's just raised the bar overall.
What would you say, CMOs are most asking you to do for them? I mean, what is top of mind for them, and where can you really be a partner for CMOs?
It's interesting because while our whole industry's changed dramatically, with the advent of, content development and social media and mobile, it's the exact same at the same time. Our big CMOs and their CMOs of top companies in the United States are asking us for the same thing that they've always asked. I have to deliver business results. But I understand that the brand needs to be differentiated. Competition is stiffer than it's ever been. Things are more commoditized than they've ever been. So I need a brand idea, and I need it to be uniquely mine, and I need it to be differentiated. And I want to pound away at it, and I want to build equity against it. But what I'm on the hook for, to my CEO, I can talk brands till the cows come home.
Sure.
I need comp store growth.
Yep.
I need net new policies. I need net new cards in circulation. And you got to help me with that.
Right.
So you got to be my business partner, you got to be my brand partner, and you got to be my results driver. And that puts a lot of, so we've had to add a lot of science behind our art, and we've had to add a lot of rigor around our creativity. So they're looking for really smart account people that get their business, that are good business people. They're looking for strategic people, not only be brand planners, but business planners. And then they're looking for their comms planners and their media partners, and even their ad agencies, particularly as we do more and more in the digital and mobile space, to be their results generators and ROI trackers. And it's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more pressure, a lot more stress on ad agencies. And oh, by the way, marketing is the biggest line item out there on the P&L that gets questioned the most. So you got to help me on the cost side. So you got to do it for less, and you got to take a haircut here and a haircut there, and I'm going to be more demanding than ever, and I'm going to probably engage my procurement department, and I may even hire a cost consultant just to make sure, not that I don't trust you, I just have to justify it.
Implications for compensation?
Yeah, it has huge implications because, the question is if you're on a retainer and you're trying to do more for less, and you're getting audited, and you're trying to keep the cost down, well, then that'll change the mix of people. So I can staff an account one of two ways. I can put very experienced, seasoned, senior people on it that I know could crack it, and that'll raise the average hourly rate, and will eat away the retainer much quicker. But I can deliver something I know that I feel good about, but I just can't sustain it. Or I can dumb it down, for lack of a better term, put medium folks on it, and lower the hourly rate, hit the retainer in November instead of in June, so I don't overrun so much, and maybe deliver, maybe not. And then the last thing you want to do in this day and age is lose a piece of business, because it's new business now is so difficult with recruiters. I'm sorry, with consultants. And much, much more competition. You used to pitch against 4 or 5 agencies, now you're pitching against 15 to 17 agencies. It used to be a month and a half, now it's 3.5. So it's very expensive, and it's a very long process, it's a very competitive process. And then you end up taking your eye off the client's ball. And also, big pitches are far and few between now.
Yeah.
So it's a high wire act.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act.
Well, good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you.